One of our listeners writes in, "Duh hose," which I think is kind of funny. After listening to episode 38, I was super excited to see Cabin in the Woods. As a big Joss Whedon fan, I was even more pumped to see the film. In the end, I left feeling that this was a great movie, but not 9.0 amazing, because as you guys remember, we all gave it a 9. I myself would give this a good solid 7 out of 10. One of the better horror/slasher films. See what I did there? I have seen in years. However, I wouldn't have considered this a revolutionary film that literally raised the bar. So I would like to ask the hose a question. Do you think this film stands up with other groundbreaking films such as The Matrix, or even other classic horror films like Silence of the Lambs or Evil Dead? Would you give these a lower rating equal to or a perfect 10? Dustin. So let's answer his question fairly, and then we'll go into our topic about what makes a perfect 10. Who wants to take it first? Justin, I'll let you since you...
Well, the trouble with rating anything is that so much of what goes into that rating is pure opinion. And what I can see as a 9 and you see as an 8 can vary by just me finding something a little more funny. So I have a hard time trying to create a hard and fast rule system for what a film must or must not do to be a 10 or a 9 or an 8. I thought it was a 9 because, one, I think Joss Whedon's writing is incredible. I love the dialogue he creates. I gave it a 9 because it went in directions that I never saw coming. And so many stories they do these days are either remakes of something that I already know, so I know where they're going, or they put so little imagination that I can see where they're going. So just to be surprised in a movie is wonderful these days. But mostly what I like that it did is that it took the horror genre and it flipped it on its head in a way that maybe like Scream didn't do, and that it really exposed a lot of problems that horror films have these days. Lack of imagination, lack of smarts in the writing. But it made fun of horror, but not in a making fun of it in a bad way, but really it's like joking with someone as opposed to joking at someone's expense. I thought it was daring. I thought it was fresh. I thought it was original, and it was incredibly well written. And because of that, it deserves a 9 in my opinion. I don't understand how you could find it being, well, I can't say I can't understand you not, but for me, a film that does all those things warrants a 9, whereas most films phone shit in, and then they rely on fantastic special effects or one charismatic lead to carry the rest of it on those shoulders. This film didn't do that one bit. That deserves a 9.
Well, I'll echo what you're saying, Justin, about my feelings of the film. One of the things that I kind of understand where Dustin's coming from is when you go into a movie, you have a certain expectation, and that kind of can ruin your perception of the film. The four of us went into this movie expecting to see a good movie. Me personally, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. Again, I'm not as huge of a Joss Whedon fan, but the fact that I was so surprised at how much I did like it made me like it all that much more. That said, the four of us kind of knew that this movie wasn't going to be a huge hit, or kind of, I would say at least expected this movie to not make a ton of money, not be as widely accepted as typical slasher movies or Three Stooges, apparently. But so with that being said, we kind of probably gave it higher ratings because we want more people to see this kind of movie.
No,
I don't say that at all.
No.
Don't speak for me on that.
Yeah, don't speak for me either. I will jump in on that one and say,
okay.
Here's one point he was trying to make, and I understand what he's saying. To some degree, he's trying to say, well, 10 should be reserved for the absolute best movie you've ever seen, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I think 10 should be, this was a perfect movie-going experience for me. Everything that's critical is subjective, just like Justin was saying. I don't think it's fair to ever tell anyone that their opinion is wrong. And even though I can't tell Justin he's wrong any more than he should tell me I'm wrong, even though he tells me I'm wrong all the time. But we shouldn't, because it's an opinion. An opinion is totally subjective. All I want to do is guide people and let them know, hey, you listen to the show, you know what my tastes are by listening to the show. So therefore, here's what I would rate it. Here's what I personally feel like it is. Now, he references The Matrix, which I don't feel is really fair, because they're totally different kinds of experiences. And I wouldn't rate Matrix a 10 because me personally, it's not a perfect movie for me. I really like it. I think it was revolutionary at the time, but if you go back and look at it, it's not a great movie. Evil Dead.
What?
In my opinion, I'm talking about my opinion.
Okay.
I think,
which we've established is wrong. Okay.
yes, I would give it a 9.0 as well. Evil Dead. If you look at it now, it's totally not a fantastic movie. It's not because it's 30 years old. I mean, it's all a matter of when you saw it and what the product was. Now, trying to say that something's revolutionary, that's a product of popularity. It really is. If Matrix wouldn't have been popular, it wouldn't have revolutionized shit. Because Wanted was very similar. It didn't revolutionize anything. And it had a lot of new concepts in it. But it just wasn't nearly as popular. So therefore it didn't revolutionize anything. Now, Scream, that revolutionized horror. It changed how horror was made. And that's because it came out, it was very popular, perceived very well, changed the rules a little bit. So therefore a lot of movies followed suit. This movie didn't cause that because it wasn't popular. Well, popular doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't review movies based on how popular they are. I review them based on when I go to see them, what experience did I have. Cabin in the Woods was definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. I thought it was the best horror movie I've seen in a long time. Mm-hmm. And he even says that it's probably, one of the best movies he's seen in a couple of years. To me, I would think if that's the case, it should be rated higher. But it's his own personal scale, and he can see it however he wants to. Mm-hmm. I just don't see it that way.
And let me backpedal a little bit. I don't mean to say that we rate movies, me or any of the three of you, rate movies based on wanting other people to see it. But we talked and gushed so much about this movie, and we want more people to see this movie. So let me rephrase what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we give a movie a score based on getting people to watch it, but we all really want a lot of people to see this movie. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I was actually surprised that it didn't do better. Mm-hmm. I was actually kind of blown away that it didn't. I don't know about you guys. I mean, maybe y'all thought it was going to do pretty low, but I thought it was going to be one of the bigger, actually the bigger one of the weekend. But
I thought it was going to get a surge after people talked about it, and I was wrong.
It's 91% positive on RT. So I mean, it's 9 out of 10 on RT average. So it's not just us. But go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
But but kind of to answer his question, I don't really think it's a groundbreaking movie. It's I consider it more of an homage to multiple, I guess, really just the horror genre in general. And I like the way they told the story. It's real twisty, kind of like Justin. You knew going into it that it wasn't a straight on horror movie, and you knew there was some sort of possibly government type twist to it. But all of that's established in the first 5 to 10 minutes, and the rest of it is a ride that you're not real sure about. Mm-hmm. And I like that part of it. That, okay, I went into this having certain preconceptions, and I was right, but that only covered the first 10 minutes of the movie. And so the rest of it, I'm kind of going, where are they going to go next? Where are they going to, what are they going to do next? So it was, and that's part of the experience. That's why I give it a 9, and it's not necessarily because it's it's introducing new effects like maybe The Matrix or Jurassic Park or something like that. But it was just a fun ride. That's why I gave Fast 5, I believe, a perfect 10 last year, because it was such a fun ride. Now, is that one of the greatest movies of all time? No. But
it's the most fun one you saw last year.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
And it's not even close. Yeah. So.
And to play devil's advocate about Justin's point here a little bit, is the fact that the way we enjoyed this movie a credit to the movie's quality or to the way that it was presented to us from like a marketing aspect? Would you have liked this movie as much if we had gone into it seeing scenes from the third act of the movie? Do you think that would have made us like it any less or any more?
No, I don't think that mattered at all. I've seen it twice now, and I felt the same way the second time.
Okay.
So
I think it's a little unfair to movies unfortunately movies are one of those art forms that are very much a product of their time, and it's very hard. And I think it's unfair to look back on certain films and try and judge them for what they are then as opposed to what things have done now. And a film like The Matrix, which at the time I didn't know anyone who had ever seen a movie that looked remotely like that one, because it did so many incredibly cool and interesting things. Since then, it's been ripped off and borrowed from, to the point that it can't help but kind of pale a little bit given what's come later. So film has to kind of be judged somewhat on the time in which it's made, and looking back on certain films and trying to judge them after the fact is a little unfair. But I feel like with Cabin in the Woods, I went into it expecting to like it, and I came out really liking it. I think it's also fair to say that there are people who go into these sorts of films expecting, or as much as I may be accused of overliking a film to hype it, I think there are a lot of people who will underhype a movie or give it crap strictly because they've got some kind of either agenda with that movie or the people in it, or they just want to be one of those kids that gets attention for not liking something everyone else does. There are arguments that can be made on both sides of overhyping and underhyping a film. I just liked it because it was fucking smart. And so few films these days are. It was not a by-the-numbers movie.
Yes, and I think by the same token, a lot of people probably go to the movie and don't like it because they wanted to see a slasher flick at a cabin. You know, like your typical Evil Dead type film. I think a lot of people wanted to see that. They wanted to see rednecks killing people in the cabin, and they didn't see that, and they came out pissed off because it's not that kind of movie at all. And by the same token, it's whatever you take out of it. Sure, marketing's going to create your expectations. You're going to go in, you're going to expect one thing or another, and your like of that film might be deterred or increased by that marketing. But me personally, I've seen it. I went in with the hype factor because it wasn't my most anticipated movie of the year. Because I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies above any other genre. For whatever reason, I'm sick, I'm twisted, or I hate life, whatever it is. I went in, saw the movie. I had my personal reaction to it. Sat on it, did the review on the podcast. I feel comfortable with it. Went and saw it again. My opinion didn't change. I thought it was just as good a movie. And I knew everything about the movie. It just gave me, it actually made me enjoy it more because I did still feel the same way. Because, you know what? Thankfully, for once, my expectations were met. Very rarely are they met. So, and I will say there's been a pretty decent run for the last couple of months of movies that I have gone to see that have actually turned out to be pretty decent. I haven't seen an overly, bad movie since Act of Valor. So this was
Careful
About that film, bro.
Don't want to get the podcast shut down. Sorry. But in terms of what he was asking and what makes a perfect 10, I think I'm the only one that's actually called a perfect 10 on the podcast, and that was Titanic 3D. And that is very much because of it has a personal attachment to me, because I have a personal history with the movie and when I saw it and what, that kind of stuff. So there's nostalgia there. So I don't think a perfect 10 for everyone has to be, it's the best movie ever. I think, like Justin was talking about, it's a matter of circumstances, the time of the film, what it meant to you. Like The Matrix, when it first came out, I probably would have said it was a 10 hands down. Easy. But you look back at it now, and because of, like Justin said, there's so many other duplications of that film and replications and just stealing the crap out of it. It's hard for me to give it that same rating. And the sequels, especially, to me, sorry, Justin, just to me personally, take away from the original because I feel like it brought the level down. So now I would see it more as a 9, even though the film hasn't changed. It's the exact same movie. But the time has changed, and my view on it has changed.